Welcome to the channel and welcome back to another video. In this quick video, I want to talk about Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. I want to give you what they are and I want to give you how to apply them. Now, I'm not a Dave Ramsey spokesperson, so this is just my take on his 7 baby steps. After you watch this video and you get a moment, go check out my website where I write a blog helping ordinary people be extraordinary with their money. I also help people with their real estate. If you're stopping by this channel for the first time, consider subscribing to the channel. Also, please smash the like button if you get anything of value out of this video. Dave Ramsey is just a radio personality. And as a radio personality, he has a radio show. And on that show for the last 25 or so years, he's been helping people get out of debt and find financial freedom. He calls it financial peace. P-E-A-C-E, financial peace. So he's well known for helping people win with money. And he has these 7 baby steps that he talks about on his show that everybody should go through to reach their financial peace. Now, I've talked about on other videos that my money journey really started about 20 years ago. So I actually heard of Dave Ramsey and started listening to Dave Ramsey probably back in 2005. Over the years, I've gotten a good dose of his philosophy and his 7 baby steps. Whether or not you agree or disagree with Dave Ramsey, that's totally up to you. It's your choice one way or the other. I think Dave Ramsey has a lot of good things to say. Now, remember, he's talking on the radio to millions and millions of people. You have to remember that personal finance is personal. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. Everybody's situation has some slightly different twists and turns to it. But in general, these baby steps have helped millions of people change their philosophy or even develop and form a philosophy about money and about debt. So what I'm going to do is talk about what the baby steps are and whether or not you should actually apply them to your financial situation. So let's jump into the 7 baby steps. Baby step number 1 is to save $1,000 for an emergency. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Dave Ramsey kind of refers to it as an initial emergency fund, just to kind of hedge against any potential emergencies that are going to happen. So in other words, the washer and dryer is going to go out. The stove's going to go out. You're going to need your brakes done on your car. Something's going to happen that you need an emergency fund immediately. So put back $1,000 for that in case something goes wrong. That way, you don't have to go down and get a payday loan or borrow money from a friend or family member. You have $1,000 of your own money that's set aside in case something goes wrong. And you put that emergency money in a place where you can get to it immediately. Maybe a savings account or something where you can actually access it at a moment's notice. Now, baby step number 2 is the big one. This is the big one that gets everybody. And Dave's philosophy is do 1, 2, and 3 as quick as possible. So baby step number 2 is to get out of debt as fast as humanly possible. So if you have credit card debts, pay it off. If you have car loans, pay it off. If you have hospital bills, pay them off. So Dave's philosophy is to be gazelle intense, like a gazelle, the animal. And he's saying move as fast as possible to get out of debt as quick as possible and get as many wins in terms of your debt as possible. Stack the debts up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many there are, and pay them off one by one immediately. And don't worry about necessarily the interest on them. Just go ahead and pay them off quickly, because if you pay them off quickly, the interest rate doesn't matter or matters less. So Dave's philosophy is this: live today like no one else, so tomorrow you can live like no one else. And one of the ways you do that is by immediately focusing on all the mountain of debt that you have. Now, the one thing he says about baby step number 2 is, yeah, pay off debt, except the home that you live in. So if you're actually buying a house, don't pay that off yet. Don't lump that into number 2. Number 2 is going to be your consumer debt. Number 2 is going to be all your debt except the home that you're living in. And I believe Dave's reasoning behind that is that's usually a large purchase that is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's going to take a little bit longer to get out of debt with that one. And also, everybody needs a place to live and a roof over their head. So his philosophy is pay off all your debt except your home. That's baby step number 2. And it's the baby step that most people get stuck in. Because if you're sitting behind a mountain of $100,000, $200,000 debt, it's difficult to pay that off on your salary. Get a second job, get a third job, take on overtime, do whatever you can to pay off that debt as soon as possible. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, pay it off. If you're making $200,000 a year and you've got $100,000 of debt, Dave's philosophy says that debt should be gone pretty quick within a year or two. Now, if you're making $50,000 a year and you have $150,000 of debt, that's going to take you a little longer, maybe 3 or 4 years. Focus, focus, focus with gazelle intensity to pay that debt off as soon as possible. And baby step number 2 is by far the hardest of the baby steps. Baby step number 3 is to fully fund the emergency money. Remember, with step 1, you only had $1,000 of emergency money. With step 3, Dave's philosophy says put 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses to the side for a fully funded emergency fund. So you add up what your monthly expenses are every month and multiply that by 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 to come up with the total amount you need to fully fund your emergency fund. Once you've completed baby step number 1 and you've got your emergency $1,000 and you've completed baby step number 2 where you've actually paid off all your debt, actually completing baby step number 3 is usually not that difficult because now you've freed up a bunch of money and you can quickly fully fund your emergency account. The other thing about the emergency fund is if you have like really stable jobs, you're a teacher or you're a nurse or you have a career that you know is not going anywhere, then perhaps you can go with the 3 months. But if you have a very volatile type of job where you're not sure or you're in sales or something, then maybe you want to have more like a 6-month emergency fund because you know that something could happen to your job. So you want to lower your risk. And that means having a fully funded emergency fund that's more like 5 or 6 months in case something goes wrong. You've done the first 3 baby steps. Now we're on to baby step number 4. Now, baby steps 4, 5, 6, and 7 can sort of happen at the same time as opposed to the first 3 that happened one right after the other. Now, Dave's philosophy says don't invest otherwise until you get those first 3 things done. In other words, get fully focused on them. It may take you 2 or 3 or 4 years, but by the time you finish, you're going to have a bunch of money left over that you can now start investing. Baby step number 4 is to ensure that you have 15% of your money that you make going towards investments. And those investments are going to be your retirement accounts. So in other words, now you're ready to actually invest money. Once you've freed up your money, got out of debt, got your emergency fund set up, now you put at least 15% of all the money you have coming in towards retirement. Now you can begin to see your money grow, making sure that 15% of all the money you make gets invested somewhere that it's going to grow. Baby step number 5 is saving for your kids' college. One of the most important parts of these baby steps is making sure you do what you can so that the next generation, your kids, don't have to go into debt themselves. And that's why baby step number 5 is so important, because if you're able to save money for your kids' college or whatever post-high school career they want to learn about or get into, if you get it funded in your baby steps, then you set them up in a position where they don't have to start life in debt. There's so many young people, 22, 23, 24 years old, that are sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. In the baby steps, there's a way to make sure your kids don't go through that. And that's a big piece of baby step number 5. Notice how steps 1 through 4 were all about you and not about your kids or your future generations. First, take care of you. Part of what Dave talks about in his philosophy is taking care of you and your retirement before you start saving for your kids. If push comes to shove and something happens to you, your kids have to take care of themselves. And so this baby step, as far as putting money to the side for college for your kids, is number 5. It's not number 1, it's not number 2 or 3, it's number 5. Baby step number 6. Now, with baby step number 6, you go back and you pay off the house. So if you're living in a house and you bought a house and you've hopefully put that house on a 15-year note, by the time you get to baby step number 6, you don't have debt, you've put money to the side or are putting money to the side for your kids' college education, you have a fully funded emergency fund, and now you have some extra money laying around now you can pay off that home quickly. Instead of waiting for 30 years or 15 years, now you can start putting money towards your home and paying that house off as soon as possible. And now baby step number 7 is to live, give, enjoy, have fun with your money, and just do the things with your money that you always wanted to do. After baby step number 3, when you put your emergency money, fully funded it, I think 4, 5, 6, and 7 are baby steps that can kind of be done at the same time. After baby step number 3, if you want to go on a vacation or you want to buy a car, cash, or something like that, I think Dave is cool with that. I think the most important baby steps is 1, 2, and 3. And once you get 1, 2, and 3 out the way, 4, 5, 6, and 7 kind of have some wiggle room. Personal finance is personal. From Dave's standpoint, I think these are outlines, sort of a guideline, sort of a blueprint for how you can actually obtain financial freedom and financial peace. I hope I helped you understand Dave Ramsey's baby steps. If you got anything out of this video, please smash the like button. Please check out the notes below and subscribe to the channel. Remember, the best person to take care of the old you is the young you. Take care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.